everyone. It's a special edition, despecialized edition, Vergecast. We are talking about Star Wars and nothing but Star Wars for the next, I think we got 43 minutes. So you are strapped in, ready to journey to a galaxy far, far away. Hopefully you're listening to this after after Star Wars: The Force Awakens has come out, because we are going to be getting into some spoilers here. 3 of us that are on this podcast have seen the movie. 2 of us have not. 1 could not give less of a shit. But let's do some intros. With me here in New York, Ross Miller.
Yes, and I'm the one who hasn't seen it but does kind of give a shit.
Yeah.
But also got so obsessed with spoilers that I've pretty much just ruined the movie for me.
Yeah, you really. Yeah, I didn't even realize how much was out there that you could spoil yourself on until after I saw the film, and I was like, oh, none of this might have been a surprise to anybody. But
Yeah.
that's on Skype. We have in LA Bryan Bishop, senior reporter, veteran of the official premiere, the world premiere of Star Wars: The Force Awakens a couple days ago.
Indeed.
How
The world
changed
premiere.
are you?
How changed am I?
Yeah.
It was weird. It was kind of like this moment. If there was a center of hype for this movie, it was that premiere, because it was like you had this one room. There's 3 theaters, right? 4 blocks of Hollywood Boulevard, blocked off for this thing, and in one room, Abrams and Bob Iger from Disney are, giving a standing ovation to Lucas, who was there, acting like he was happy. And then it was, taken over. And a new movie happened, and it's all not his from here on out. So it was good. I mean, we'll talk a little later about how I felt after the movie, but the premiere was definitely interesting. If you ever want to spend, several hours in a super cold tent in Hollywood, that was the place to be.
Yeah, it looked like you were in hyperspace, like the weird kind of purpley foil tunnel
Right?
look.
It was more Tron than Star Wars, actually, which is a
Okay,
little bit
all
strange.
right.
But they tried, so it's good.
Nice. Also joining us on Skype is our film critic, Tasha Robinson, calling in from Chicago. Also somebody who has seen Star Wars and will be writing about it very, very soon, or has already written about it. You will read her writing on it very, very soon. Tell me about seeing it in Chicago. It's just a bunch of critics? I mean, mine was just a bunch of critics, so.
Just a bunch of critics? That's so diminutive. No, it was a bunch of critics.
Oh my God, critics!
But yeah, it was, George Lucas was not there. Nobody got a standing O. It was just a bunch of critics in a room, which is usually a kind of a dour affair.
Yeah.
Like, critics-only screenings, like, everybody kind of tries to keep their reactions in because they don't want to give anything away to anybody else, because we're all kind of in competition. But there was a lot of laughter in that room.
Yeah.
Like, there was a sense of tension and a sense of excitement that you really don't get very often with critic screenings.
Yeah. I mean, there was applause for almost any throwback, of which there were many, and we'll get into that in a second, in my screening. A lot of laughs. It was a very participatory audience, which I think like something like Star Wars is one of the few things that can bring that out of a room full of critics.
I was say, was it entirely critics, or is it like a mix of like PR and like families?
Well, I was sitting next to a couple of college kids from Drew University. I'm not really sure where that is, but they were really into esports, so they were talking a lot about esports, and their friend's dad works for Disney, so got them in. So cool for them. I didn't even want to ask. I was like, were you even born yet when Phantom Menace came out?
You know the answer.
Remember?
It's not yet.
They would have been like 16 or something, or 16. Yeah. No. So if you were born when Phantom Menace came out, you'd be 16 now. So they were probably like 3. They still wouldn't remember it. They wouldn't remember the entire the angst of the Phantom Menace, which I guess we can kind of get into now, just as a way to roll into the film. There was a lot writing on this film, mostly by way of bad example from the prequels. I don't know how everybody feels individually about them, but I personally just watched episode 3 for the first time since theaters, I think. I think I only watched it once. Oh God, it's just so bad, man. Like, I know you watched all of it, Bryan. You watched all 3, episode 1, 2, and 3, in preparation for for Force Awakens. How did that inform your experience at all? Or
I mean, it certainly set expectations that The Force Awakens had no problem, exceeding. I
Right.
mean, they are so painfully bad. It is weird going back. Like, I think conventional wisdom was that Revenge of the Sith was the best of the prequels because it gave people what they finally wanted to see, which was Darth Vader. But you watch them again, and it's kind of the worst. Like, number one, Phantom Menace is terrible, but at least you can tell, like, Lucas actually gave a shit. Where I feel like by Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, he was just like, sure, lava fight, go.
Yeah.
Like, he so didn't care. Nobody cared.
I mean, it seemed like also like episode 3 was like, oh shit, I actually have to do the plot. I have to connect this to 4 in some way. And like, yeah, because I just did the whole weekend watching 1 through 6, all the, the new versions, all the altered versions. But it was still like, I ended up enjoying Attack of the Clones more than the others. They all sucked. They all completely sucked.
I didn't even bother to look at Attack of the Clones.
I mean, they're all terrible, but the first one has the expectation of being the first, and the third one has to do plot. So the second one's like, it doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's okay being a bad movie.
Yeah.
But Ross, you're talking about a movie where Anakin and Natalie Portman roll around on the grass as they fall in love. Like, that's kind of indefensible.
But don't forget, I love
Sand.
you. No, I love you. Oh, and then love is blind. Oh, then or whatever that freaking phrase
Right,
was.
I don't like sand. It's coarse. It gets everywhere.
I mean, God bless that line. That line is one of the worst movie lines of all time. I think, like, not even just if you are a Star Wars fan and you have an investment in Star Wars.
Right.
It's just a plain out bad line. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's really, really impossible to judge this movie in a vacuum, right? Like, duh. But also, even just with the prequels, I mean, that I was saying that J.J. Abrams for Force Awakens actually is hugely indebted to George Lucas, not just because he invented Star Wars, but because he did it so wrong that there was a really, really clear example of what not to do. So it's like, okay, don't take away all the things that we love about Star Wars. Like, keep film, keep this like warm feeling, keep this sort of like romantic comedy banter with people. Like, that's the things that people liked. They actually like this sort of quasi-religious tone of these, and like super slow tone of the prequels actually had nothing to do with the original trilogy as far as like resembling them as films. And I think that was just a really, really good bellwether, at least for him to say, okay, I'm going to go the opposite direction. And for the most part, I think it pays off.
And yeah, like everything I've heard about the movie, like, again, that sounds weird to say on the podcast about the movie, but it's like J.J. Abrams has been very good about nostalgia. Like, Star Trek was an homage to all Star Trek. Super 8 is an homage to a bunch of other stuff. Like, it plays to like these certain beats.
Yeah.
That it just like, he knows how to get people like wistful about their childhood.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like we're on the edge of getting into spoiler land. So before we go to our first ad, Kaitlyn, hype check Star Wars.
I mean, I don't know. Star Wars hype is not a number anymore. It's like a web that has entrapped everyone inside of it. Like, I don't care about Star Wars, and I've still spent probably 4 to 5 hours a day dealing with Star Wars on a daily basis for 2 months. It's just so like it's not hype. It's just the ether.
Is the web that has entrapped you perhaps the web? The worldwide web?
Yeah. Yeah, the World Wide Web of brands, of people I work with, and of just the Verge audience.
It's pretty impossible to
in love
avoid
with
if you
Star
have
Wars.
anything to do with online publishing. It's hard. It's impossible to avoid Star Wars, especially this week. But it's almost all over, right? We're about to be done with Star Wars, right? Nope, we've got an ad. All right. So if you are enjoying today's episode, you might want to check out another awesome podcast called Ventures, a series produced by iconic venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins, who has invested in Google, Amazon, Twitter, and Uber. The Ventured podcast takes a close look at some of the fastest growing tech trends in Silicon Valley, as well as behind the scenes interviews with the tech giants from companies like Netflix and Google. The podcast episodes cover topics on pressing business and technology issues and the implications to our lives. Some of their conversation topics include the inside story of how Uber built a global business, how Google thinks about hiring, management, and culture, how cyber hacking is the new global battlefield, and even practical topics for entrepreneurs like tips for surviving a tech bubble. Cool. Sorry. Check them out on iTunes or SoundCloud by searching Ventured. It'll be worth the listen. All right, let's get back into it. From here on out, you've been warned. Spoilers will abound. So I want to talk to you, Tasha, just because I've been editing your piece that is about this very thing that Ross was talking about, this nostalgia in The Force Awakens, and how almost carbon copy. I like to think of it as Mad Libs, because it's like fill in the blank. There's a new person to put in each spot. The plot is of The Force Awakens, and I came out of the movie kind of being very mixed about it. I would go 5 minutes thinking it was great, it felt awesome, and 5 minutes thinking it was very cynical. But I was wondering what you actually, first, whether you thought it worked or not.
Well, it works as an experience. It works in the moment. I walked out of the theater just feeling really ebullient, like really energized. Like it felt almost like Star Wars did when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And there's not as much of a sense of discovery because you're watching A New Hope. But in that sense, it felt like watching A New Hope again when I was a kid. Like, I was cynical by the time of Return of the Jedi. Like, I was a little kid when the first one came out. Mm-hmm. And by the time of Return of the Jedi, I was like, this is all digital. Like, there are all of these weird effects, and the puppets are starting to go away, and it's like all action beats, and it doesn't feel dignified anymore. It doesn't feel serious. It doesn't have that weight that made the first Star Wars like so creepy for a little kid.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is back here, but there's also just, seeing Han and Leia and Chewie again, seeing the Millennium Falcon again. There are all of these elements that keep getting brought up over and over. That's like, remember everything you loved about Star Wars? Here it is again. And we've kind of dusted it off and given it a new surface, but we actually cared about making that surface real this time. It's not just, here's a digital version. It's not like when they replaced the Yoda puppet with a CGI Yoda.
Yeah.
It's more like they went back and dug out the puppet Yoda and like cleaned it up and brought Frank Oz back and paid him $1 billion to do the voice. It's like, everything you loved about this, we want to do it right again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot made of Abrams shooting on film, using practical effects. There are still some digital effects. There's one or two characters where I feel like they could have done practical, maybe. Not characters. I'm talking about those dumb monsters in the corridor, and like the one scene where I was like, you guys could have lost this. Like, they could have lost 15 minutes, I feel like, in the whole action sequence around Han, like when we first meet Han. I feel like I haven't talked about this specifically with either Bryan or Tasha, but like that scene, that was like it
felt like it was from a different movie.
Yeah. It felt like was the only thing that felt like it was studio mandated. Like, we need another action beat here, because you could have taken it out and it wouldn't have affected the plot at all. But I mean, and it also stuck out because of the look of it too. I mean, up until that point, all the stuff on Jakku, which, why isn't it Tatooine? Like, why can't it just be Tatooine?
It is Tatooine. It's just Tatooine with, like, they literally could have gone through with a copy of the script for New Hope and just crossed out Tatooine, right in Jakku, crossed out Obi-Wan Kenobi and wrote in Luke Skywalker, crossed out Luke Skywalker and wrote in Rey. I mean, all of the elements are there, like all of them, piece by piece. And like the piece that I wrote is about like some of that works and some of it doesn't. And for me, it mostly worked until we got to yet another Death Star, because this is the third time we've done that rather than the second.
Yeah.
And I was like, really, we're going to that exact same well in the exact same way?
But it's
like,
bigger.
That's what we're gonna do? I know.
It's
we
so
had
much bigger.
Like, we've done this before. And they're like, no, you don't understand. It's bigger.
They actually do they have the hologram or holographic like display that, like, that they've always had in these the rebel boardrooms, where it's like, here's the Death Star, and here's the Star Killer base, or Star Killer base, that's what it's called, right?
Right.
Yeah. And it's like the Resistance guys saying, wait, we couldn't do better. And they were like, hush. He's like, I understand how sequels work. You made it bigger, but I don't see that. And they're like, shut up. We're sticking you in the closet. We're doing it again.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So how self-aware is it that it's like almost like a circuitous thing? Like that, like these are like Empire fanboys who just try to make a better version of that, or?
Yeah. I don't know, Bryan, what do you think? Like,
I mean, it's weird looking, after having seen the movie, it's interesting to look back at the whole campaign, because while they were selling the movie, we were all talking about the nostalgia thing and, the practical effects thing. And like, clearly they were trying to go and, erase people's memories about the prequels. But I think they actually have been selling this movie the entire time. It's a movie that they said, hey, the other stuff was terrible. We're going to make something that has all those elements that you liked before. And the way it ends, which we can get to in a second, that's what it feels like when the real story begins, right? This movie feels like strictly a transitional piece. It's an extraordinarily entertaining transitional piece and checks off all the boxes Star Wars fans want, right? Nobody's going to walk out of this and not say it doesn't feel like Star Wars, which was like the key thing I think they needed to accomplish. So in that sense, like they did what they needed to do, and it's fun, but it doesn't. It never. I don't think it was ever trying to actually be a great movie on its own, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, because it does feel like, I mean, it just feels of very great quality that I don't know why they wouldn't try to add in some more original beats. I mean, that last scene that you're talking about that feels so dramatically different from the rest of the film, it feels like genuine new territory.
Yeah.
And since we're assuming that you have watched the movie at this point, if you're listening to this, I will say it is when we find Luke again, when Rey goes to see Luke. Yo, you okay over there?
I know those
Don't care about
names.
Star Wars?
I just got in a fight with my boyfriend on Facebook Messenger because he found out I was going to hear the spoiler.
Oh my God. Oh, the Vergecast ruining
him.
relationships, one relationship at a time. No, I mean, yeah, that happens at the end. But it's on this it's in an unusual location. It just feels visually different. There's no dialogue, which a lot of the film has been very chatty up until then in a way that's very, very reminiscent of like Han and Leia bantering and stuff. I mean, that's very much how like Rey and Finn sort of interact with each other. And then it gets very quiet and it gets very like ominous. And part of me now is like, is that really what I want now? Even though it was exciting in the context of a movie, because I feel like that's too much of what the prequels was like overly precious about like how serious we had to be about this space story. That I don't know. I'm excited to see. Well, we can talk more. Let's save moving forward for the end. Let's just talk about characters. I mean, for me, the leads, the three new leads, I guess, Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, and Daisy Ridley. They were all three really, really strong, and I left thinking, oh, maybe also one of the biggest differences between this and the prequels is just that the actors feel like real people and they're allowed to feel like humans. That felt like such a huge change. But did anybody have a particular standout or?
For me, it's Finn, because like as much as I love Rey and as much as I love the fact that the whole movie kind of teases you about, is she going to stay a character in her own right, or is she going to become another like maiden in distress? And the film keeps teasing, oh, somebody's going to have to rescue her. Oh no, she's got this, over and over and over. And I loved that. I loved the character. But for me, she's kind of a Luke Skywalker remix. Like she starts off as the hayseed on this desert planet, and she wants to escape, and she gets out in the world, and soon she's got a lightsaber and the Force and all this stuff. So she's a character that we haven't seen done before by a woman, but she's a character we've seen done before. And then Poe, I thought was a lot of fun, but he's new Han Solo. He's just, the adventures of young Han Solo. For me, Finn, not just because he's an actor of color, but because of what he represents in the story, he's like a completely new thing.
Yeah.
And he's one of the very few completely new things we get. This idea of the stormtrooper breaking ranks, this idea of him like wanting to escape and be part of something else, the little hero's journey that he goes on. I ended up with a lot of questions about him.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see a lot more explaining who he is. But for me, he stood out just because he was the strongest different element that we saw in this film. That was something we hadn't seen before at all.
I want to clarify because it sort of struck me as familiar, but some people are saying that it's new information that stormtroopers are child soldiers.
I mean, so people get confused because you see the clones, you see like the Jango Fett clones in episode 2, but like since then, like they did start recruiting real human beings. After that.
Yeah. So it seemed like the way that Finn talks about his origin and the small way that he does is like, I was like any other stormtrooper. I was like, they murdered everybody in my village and stole all the children and made us stormtroopers. I was like, that's very dramatic. I mean, it's very interesting how we're also very conditioned for so much more intense imagery and violence and I don't know, edginess in stories like this, or like any franchise stuff, even Marvel stuff, and how House of Star Wars has like these horrific things in it, like entire villages being burned down, and children being lightsabered and stuff, and it's so gentle and delicate about all of it. Like, I can't believe how they treated that in episode 3 when I rewatched it last night.
I also I was watching the original Star Wars last night, and I, for some reason, in the years and years I've watched that movie, I've never noticed like that one scene when Luke comes back to his home, like see his family, and there are just 2 charred corpses.
That freaked me out when I was a kid.
I never noticed until last night. I just like, oh,
you never noticed?
I was like, oh, it's like a burning bush and some like furniture, and then I was like, oh no, that's
it's Aunt Beru.
That's a fucking head. Oh God.
Yeah. No, that's I mean, the way Star Wars deals with violence, I mean, it's very, very deliberate. It's trying to Star Wars is not there to do any really heavy commentary on the nature of violence or the nature of war or anything like that. I mean, they tried to a degree in the prequels, especially like around the Bush administration, but that all seemed really heavy-handed. I mean, it's above all an adventure story. So when it gets to like actually gnarly stuff, it sometimes feels ill-equipped to deal with it. But then I don't know how much I want it to deal with it also. Maybe I just want a space story.
Did he really say that his whole village was killed, though? I mean, I remember that as he was stolen. He said he was stolen from his family, and it left me believing that he still maybe had family out there somewhere to return to, which is not mentioned. Like, I'd have to go back and watch it again for that. But I definitely didn't walk away from that. I did walk away with the child soldier feel, but I thought he just said he was kidnapped, not like everyone was murdered.
Right. And you brought up...
That was my take, too.
You brought up an interesting thing, Tasha, about how, I mean, he kind of has this crisis on the battlefield or like while they're doing a raid. But then because brought on by a stormtrooper and one of his fellow stormtroopers getting killed. Mm-hmm. And then he turns around and kills a bunch of stormtroopers.
Like a ton of stormtroopers. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into that because that's still something I want to write about at length. But I'm very curious if he has any fellow feeling at all for all these people behind the masks who, like, that's basically who he was 5 minutes ago. And I talked about this with Bryan, and Bryan was the one that pointed out to me that all of this is triggered by seeing one of his fellow stormtroopers die. So is that somebody he knew? Is that somebody he cared about? Or was he just like, oh crap, this armor is useless. This could be me in a second. I'm out of here. Because his original fleeing seems to be driven by fear as much as by like any sense of like empathy or right or wrong. Yeah. He doesn't like seeing people slaughtered, but he really seems pretty heavily motivated by saving his own skin for a while there. Right. And then out of the blue, he's like, I kind of love this girl, so I'm brave. And it's a great arc. It's just an arc that feels like it's missing a few pieces filling it in.
So wait, was this his first outing as a stormtrooper? Like, is this his first time seeing action?
He's supposed to be new, but you know what's funny is that then he says he worked as a janitor. So what was he doing raiding a village? Why did they send a janitor out to...
Promotion.
He got promoted.
All right.
In the real world, come on. In the real world, people get promoted from janitors to like frontline infantrymen / executors of villages like that.
I just realized that.
Star Killer. They want to get more people. Yeah. Further to Tasha's point that I thought was really funny, when he rescues Poe. By the way, he rescues Poe later, guys. He says, "I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do." And it's like, so is killing a bunch of your friends you were hanging out with and working with like 10 minutes earlier? Was that also the right thing to do?
But to be fair, like Poe calls him on that instantly.
Yeah.
He's like, you just need a pilot. And he's like, I just need a pilot. He really just wants to get the hell out of there. And he's pretty clear about it, that he's just trying to save himself at first.
It's really
But then when he gets inspired, he just turns into like a one-man stormtrooper slaughtering machine.
Yeah. Also, like, part-time Jedi just, like, picks up a lightsaber and is actually pretty good with it. Like, I think it's interesting what the humanity of how the humanity of stormtroopers has changed and been a subject of fascination and preoccupation, like, as a side story through all Star Wars movies or the clones. Like, I think it very much varies depending on, like, the current geopolitical climate, not to go too deep here. I just think, like, I mean, that's obviously, like, the big conversation in Clerks, but, like, this almost feels like it's playing into that whole discussion, like a Kevin Smith discussion of, like, okay, let's go deep on one of these guys and, like, his relationship with his buddies and everything. Like, let's actually humanize the stormtroopers or a stormtrooper, which is very interesting. I mean, not all of them are, because now whenever he goes back and encounters any of them, they all just yell traitor at him like a bunch of robots. So I don't know.
I mean, I can't help but wonder if that's not partially a fan thing, because fans figured out how to make those armor like suits pretty early on, and I don't think I've been to like a major convention since the mid 80s where there was a battalion of stormtroopers walking around. Because as soon as people figured out how to make the suits, it was like me and all my friends are going as like an entire troop of stormtroopers.
We want to be
and
a
all of a
faceless
sudden it
herd.
became like a cool thing to do.
Yeah. Well, are we good for time? Do we need to do another ad? The funny thing is, behind the scenes tech note on this podcast, the entire crew has walked out of the booth because they don't want to hear our spoilers. So we can do whatever we want right now. In case anybody wants to switch topics, but I don't think we do. I'm gonna just hit another ad, and then I'm gonna get to some like rapid fire survey questions for everybody. All right. This week's episode of the Vergecast is brought to you by Earth Class Mail. Earth Class Mail moves your snail mail to the cloud, giving you instant access 24/7 and integrates with the tools and services you use every day. It's crazy that we've moved everything we do for business over to the digital world, but we still need to pick up, sort, and manage physical mail. It's crazy. With Earth Class Mail, you get all of your mail scanned and accessible online 24/7. You can search your mail, send invoices over to your accounting software, sync important documents into cloud storage, deposit checks, and really just make running your business a whole lot easier.
Whoa.
You also get a real professional address to share publicly with customers, business partners, and investors. And you'll never need to worry about This is so strange. You'll never need to worry about someone showing up at your front door if you run your business from home. Scary. Now, I've checked out Earth Class Mail, and I think it's a brilliant solution that's perfect for businesses and independent entrepreneurs of all types. Visit earthclassmail.com/Vergecast, and you'll get your first month of service free when you sign up. That's earthclassmail.com/Vergecast. All right. I'm going to do some quick round table questions. These are mostly going to be geared at people who have seen the movie, but if you have not, feel free to just like do a wild guess, like a prediction.
Okay.
Okay, did J.J. Abrams do a good job, yes or no? Bryan.
Yeah.
Okay. Tasha.
We're still in. Did he do a good job at what? Did he do a good job at imitating A New Hope? Yes. Did he do a good job at making an entertaining movie? Yes.
Oh.
Did he do a good job at creating something entirely new? No. There are a lot of jobs here. He succeeded at some, like Finn succeeded at his janitorial duties. he failed at others. Like he failed
I love the shade so much. J.J. Abrams, if you need a really expensive brand ambassador, he's your guy. Kaitlyn, did J.J. Abrams do a good job?
Seems like it. I don't know. He seems all right.
He seems all right.
He seems better than Colin. What's his face is definitely not gonna be.
Trevorrow?
Yeah.
I can't wait for that.
I wonder if they'll ever rethink that situation. I mean, undoubtedly Trevorrow will have another. Is he going to do the next Jurassic Park movie?
I would think so.
Not directing.
Oh, no?
He's not directing it, but he's going to have another blockbuster that's not Star Wars in between now and Episode 9. Like, I don't know why I have it in for him so much. I just do.
Because Jurassic World's like offensively bad to the point where it's mean. Like, if you know you're gonna make $1 billion on something, like you can't just try just to be polite. Like,
I mean, I'm not very polite right now because I haven't even seen it, and I'm just throwing all the shade.
I haven't seen it either, so yeah.
It's wow, you haven't seen it either?
I never got around to it.
Yeah,
There's
no,
so
me
much
neither.
else. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll see this weekend. I didn't, and then I heard everybody thought it sucked, and then I was like, okay, maybe I don't need to add to its profits. I'm a conscious consumer. All right, did J.J. Abrams do a good job, Ross?
Yes, in the sense that I've had a lot of fun with the marketing campaign, and he's definitely the builder of the hype around that.
We didn't even really talk about that. I mean, the amount, now that we're spoiling everything, it's like the idea of spoilers and secrecy is not really an issue anymore, but like that is a huge part of what makes it enjoyable to watch for the first time. But then at the same time, like we're saying, if you've seen the original trilogy, you're already spoiled for it. Like,
Right.
you can make a very, very decent guess at what's going to happen just like by filling in blanks from the original. So, like, I guess that's sort of a surprise in and of itself. But okay, next question: who's the best character, the best new character? And you can choose a main character, like one of the people that is in every scene or almost every scene, or and then one side character, one fun grab bag character. Bryan.
For me, my favorite character was Rey. And I definitely agree with what Tasha said in that she's definitely like a remix on Luke. But what I liked about her is that she has her shit together so much more than Luke ever did. Like Luke was whining about not getting to go pick up power converters at the store. And like, Rey would just fucking like build a power converter out of scratch.
Rey
like,
would
she's
go
schooling
to
Han Solo.
Rey would go
and have,
like source one from a downed Star Destroyer. Like she's yeah.
Right. And she's like so self-assured and has her shit together, even though she kind of like hasn't really accepted her role. And Daisy really, I thought, just like killed it. And there's like that moment at the end when when she finally gets the lightsaber.
It's cool, bro.
It was such a great crescendo moment. And everybody, I mean, obviously in the theater, everybody loved it because it was the premiere and yay.
Yeah.
But it's a great moment. I mean, that moment like delivers and it's so satisfying.
Yeah. No, that's a stand up and cheer one. And then it's funny because I don't know. The part where she kind of uses the Force for the first time to escape is also another one where it's like, it's funny. It's like, I just spoiled that she has the Force. It's funny. I mean, they're lighthearted about it, but it's also like you're rooting for her at the same time. It's not a total joke, which is nice. Who's your minor character you like?
Minor character. Can it be like any character or just like the character I like second best? Like minor character, probably BB-8 because robot ball droids. I mean, it's hard to argue.
Totally. That's my favorite. The major character in almost every scene. Huge part of the film. Loved him. Tasha, who is your favorite major character, new character?
Finn, for reasons I think I've covered.
Yeah.
But even outside the dynamic of him being new, I really liked seeing this world through his eyes. Like Rey does have her shit together and it's awesome. It's terrific to see that. But it's also fun to watch Finn go through the process of getting his shit together.
Yeah.
Like he makes some hard decisions early on, but watching him kind of become a person instead of just like this fleeing ball of terror is just so exciting.
Yeah.
And he has so much excitement for what he does. Like, Rey just kind of proceeds in this, like, all right, we got to get it done. I'm pulling this thing out and repairing it with my teeth and sticking it back in and it's all going to work. She's so confident. Whereas he's the one that's like, I blew up a ship. He gets so excited and it's so adorable.
Yeah, he's definitely the audience surrogate in that way. I mean, that's maybe why it's useful for him to feel like the most like whole cloth new character is because he is the audience in a lot of ways, which is cool. A minor character. Maz
Kanata.
Yes.
I think she's really pretty cool. And my big regret is that she's one of these action movie characters, like Marion in the first Indiana Jones movie, essentially, where the story moves to her and then just destroys everything she's built.
Right.
She's been running that place for 1,000 years,
right.
Han Solo says. And like within 3 minutes of the story showing up, the whole place is in rubble. And it's really depressing. But she seems like maybe a little too much yoga surrogate, but she also seems like a really pretty cool person who kind of knows like who she is and what she wants and how to work with other people. I would like to see more of her. I would like her to develop a little more character and a little less like story point. Like she's kind of the exposition deliverer. Yeah. But she's too cool to waste. I think we'll see more of her.
I was saying she seemed like a cross between Yoda and Edna Mode from The Incredibles.
For sure.
Which is just like, that's perfect. That's a great character. Sign me up. I mean, I also can't wait to read the fanfic about her and Chewbacca.
That was not spoiled for me. What?
It's just like one line. Kaitlyn, who's your favorite character in Star Wars?
Llewyn Davis, obviously.
Dude, yeah.
He's going to be the best part, I can already tell.
Yeah.
He's such a dreamboat.
This movie really, really solidified my Oscar Isaac crush, which is just like kind of there, but not anything I felt. I was just like, oh yeah, I like Oscar Isaac in pretty much anything. He's great. And now I'm like, oh, Oscar Isaac, hello.
Even that terrible movie with Jessica Chastain where she was constantly putting out cigarettes in the snow.
Wait,
You know the one where he's like a gangster?
Right.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Something months or
And
seasons.
he's always
wears a
wearing
camel-
turtlenecks.
Yeah, he wears a
Yeah.
turtleneck and a camel
Yeah.
coat. Great look. I mean, he's also the other thing that's interesting about him, and like this is what I thought when he first got cast, is like he looks like an actor from the '70s. So he just like it helps with that whole like he looks like anybody else who could have been in the climactic battle in A New Hope, like just a '70s actor with sideburns, piloting a ship.
Emily
Yeah.
or Tasha, did either of you think after this movie that Oscar Isaac should be the guy that plays the new Indiana Jones? Because I felt like he was vibing like old Harrison Ford pretty hard.
Oh my god.
It really was. I don't know. Let's see how he can handle a bullwhip, and then I'll tell you.
Stop. Yeah, he's. The only thing would be like, I like him in stuff like Show Me a Hero, and I like him in smaller stuff like Ex Machina, and I like that he has a smaller role in this. I mean, he's out of the film for a lot of it, and I'm okay with that. Like the times where he is there, he's used well. He makes a good impact. A little of him goes a long way, and I wouldn't want it to be like, oh, like Oscar Isaac is the star of Star Wars or Indiana Jones or any franchise. Like I like his whole separate life. I wouldn't like it to all get eaten up by a franchise.
Well, he's also doing X-Men now also.
Oh God, wait, who
Yeah.
is he in X-Men now?
He's Apocalypse. He's like the main bad guy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
It's all
guys.
over.
Yeah.
Why does it? I mean, also like the guy who directed Creed, Ryan Coogler.
Ryan Coogan?
Yeah, Ryan Coogler or Coogan? I can't remember. Coogler, yeah. I mean, him in talks to do Black Panther. It's like, cool, everybody's getting paid. Like, everybody's going to get a great job and, like, be rewarded for their talent. These are all talented people who are good at their jobs. But it's like, I kind of felt this way when Ryan Johnson got the Episode 8 job. I was like, I love his movies. I want another Ryan Johnson movie. Like, I also want Episode 8, and I want to see his Episode 8. But it's like, yeah, everything's going to live in Disney 48, man. 2048. 2048. Who's the best character, Ross?
BB-8, without question. I think only based on marketing materials and toys, like that is the most adorable robot soccer ball, and I just want to hug it. And I had the little robot toy for a while. I would literally just watch it, and like I felt empathy
Yeah.
for something I know was just an algorithm, and it just like I'm so excited to
When
see
you
it.
have empathy for the algorithm, that's when they've really got you. Yeah, I still. Oh God, I was supposed to bring it in today. I've had it at my house. Our BB-8, and it's not. I wasn't actually trying to steal it. I kept meaning to bring it back, but then I was like, I just love looking at it, and I don't know, what are they gonna do with it in the office? Like,
It's okay. I think we do have a spare one too.
Okay, well, I'm gonna bring it back.
Okay.
I am. Maybe.
I'm trying to figure out what the Rolling Stones' empathy for the algorithm would sound like.
Yeah. That's their like the 8-bit remix. You know, that's their update.
Oh my God. Can we just title this podcast Empathy Star Wars Empathy for the Algorithm? Episode, whatever episode of the Vergecast this is. In case anybody cares, my favorite characters are, Ray and BB-8. I mean, like, it's such a, it is such a fantasy fulfillment to watch a Star Wars movie with like this plucky, scrappy girl character. Like, yeah, she's kind of flawless. She's not that complex, maybe because she's just too perfect. But like, she is every fanfic character that was written by a female Star Wars fan in the late '90s, when there were really no female characters in Star Wars at all, other than Princess Leia and I guess Mara Jade, if you've read the books, which I did not. I just know that name. And so everybody, I mean, there was always this character that was like the Mary Jane character, which is fanfic for the audience surrogate character, who's new, like a creation of the author. And it was always this character that like kind of looks like Rey. And this idea of like living in the Star Wars universe, being kind of kick-ass and independent, having an adorable little orb following you around is like my fantasy, like for life. I would live in that world for the rest of my life. So I mean, I have to. But I mean, I liked all the new characters. We haven't even talked about Han and Luke and Leia that much. Which Han I thought was like surprisingly not as like wedged in as as I thought that the older characters were going to be. I don't know. I don't know what you guys thought.
I thought it was really interesting how Leia's grown up and she's like replaced Mon Mothma in a way. Like she's become this elder statesman, and Luke's grown up and he became Obi-Wan and he trained a bunch of people and then he was betrayed and he like has recapitulated all that stuff that happened before and he went into exile. And Han Solo, it was like we just can't think of anything cooler for him to do than be Han Solo.
Totally.
So he has just reverted to where he was at the very beginning of New Hope.
He's having like a 3/4 life crisis.
He's just like he's doing exactly what he was doing, and he seems to be in exactly as much trouble. He has no money. Like maybe he went out and blew it all on like a shiny new red coupe and it got blown up. I don't know, but I just think it's really interesting that the entire rest of the world has moved on and he's still Han Solo.
Yeah.
He's the uncle who still goes to like foreigner concerts that lives in the basement. I mean, although I will say, based on the trailer, he does. The one difference is it seems like he does believe in the Force at least now. Like it's not the hokey religion thing. He is like the guy that convinces like everyone, this is kind of a real thing, guys.
He's seen some shit.
Yeah,
he's like
he's seen some shit.
It actually seemed like a believable arc though to me, because like at the end of Jedi he becomes like this like really really nice guy who's like joking and never felt true to the character. So it always seems like that guy who did shoot first, right? Because we're gonna not pretend the special editions happened. It makes sense that even if he had a great thing with General Princess Leia, he would fuck it up in some capacity. And like he doesn't necessarily fuck it up the way they tell us it in this big like single scene of exposition. But it actually seems strangely true that he would just end up doing that same thing because he's just not capable of growing.
Yeah.
He gets that little line that he throws to Finn where he's like, he basically says, that Finn should stop keeping secrets from Rey because women always figure out the truth, which like puts my hackles up a little because it's very like men are from Mars, women are from Venus, stupid generalization kind of stuff. But to me, it really speaks to like, he fucked up. He did something. And we don't know what it is, but she figured it out and they had to go their separate ways. And the sheepishness that hangs over him whenever he's around her is just like, I know I messed up. I wish we could get back together. I know we can't. Like, you can read all of that in his face. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, there's such a, like, exes, like, trading off the kids feel when they first meet. Like an ex-wife and husband, like, okay, well, have a good weekend. Bye. Good to see you. You did something different with your hair. Like, it was very, I mean, that I think that's actually very interesting because it is bold in a way to revert the whole, like, they fell in love and everything was cool after that, which is, like, just all we've known of those characters forever is that, like, they ended up together. They probably got married and had a kid, and that was it. And everything was awesome in the universe. And, like, I mean, that is just, like, the rest of the film is like that in a way too. It's just like, okay, they like the rebels won, but like it wasn't that easy. And like Han and Leia got together, but it wasn't that easy. And that's actually kind of like, if there's one kind of grimdark aspect of the entire movie, which there's really not that much that's grim or dark about this movie, I think, like at least compared to a lot of other things, it would be that kind of existential, like there's no such thing as an ending. It's like Into the Woods or something. To bring it back to some territory that Kaitlyn's like happy with.
I understand it now that we're talking about musicals.
Yeah. Okay. So who's who from Into the Woods and Star Wars?
Oh no! Don't spoil Into the Woods for me.
I don't even know. Actually, I made up that question without knowing if there was actually any clear-cut answer. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to get to.
You were going to do the which callbacks work. I'm really curious to hear that.
Oh, yeah, real quick, because we don't have too much time left, but so this, as we've been saying over and over again, this movie has a ton of callbacks, and I think it's a diminishing returns thing. I think a lot more earlier in the film worked than later in the film, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. I'll just ask guys who've seen the movie, what do you think? What do you think, Bryan? Which was your favorite?
Good question. It's, I mean, literally in the film starts, it feels like every third shot is some sort of callback or like reference. I think the one that I found just most, on a gut level entertaining was there's a joke made about parsecs, which has been a thing because, parsecs being distance versus time, like, that line never made sense. And they actually kind of like joke about it. And it's the first time they undercut the originals or they undercut themselves and it actually plays. They do it again later with the Death Star and other times. And it just is like, okay, we get it. It's a cop out. Good job, guys. But that one for me just played. But I could have been basking in the moment of like, hey, Han Solo's back for the first time in like 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your what was the thing that you were less thrilled with?
There's a moment where you're following Poe's X-wing as it goes through, and I forget what the actual term was. They're blowing up something that will make something unstable that will make Starkiller Base blow up, and it was just like the same kind of approach shot. I'm like, oh, yep, I know the shot, seen the shot.
I fell off in the same point too. Yeah. And you could kind of feel it in the theater, I think, too. There was a lot of applause for a lot of callbacks in my theater, and that one, I don't know. It was. I think it just at that point it was just like just hitting that same part of your brain over and over and over again. Tasha, what worked for you as far as callbacks?
I was so happy when the first Wilhelm scream came up. I geeked out super hard. I'm like, it's a really obvious one, but I'm glad they did it. I laughed every time Finn ran across some piece of history, like in the Millennium Falcon when he comes up with like the little flying target thing, or like the hologram game, or the fact that they climb into the same smuggler like pods that Han Solo built. Like all of that stuff worked for me. The only one that really didn't for me is when Kylo Ren is like, I'm not that person anymore because I killed him. And it's like they're calling back to when Obi-Wan Kenobi told Luke, Darth Vader killed your father.
Right.
And then later we find out that's not true. And he's like, it sort of kind of is, I guess, ish. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's been a huge like fan sticking point forever. So when Kylo Ren is like, when I stopped being that person, I killed him. It's like they're still trying to make fetch happen. And it's that fetch is not happening. Like, let it go, Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's like, and it stands out as clunky too. It's just like not very poetic, or like trying to be poetic but not really. I don't know. I have to say, and I'm gonna spoil one other big thing, but the Kylo Ren and Han confrontation did not work for me at all. I could see it coming from, like, I mean, obviously they're telegraphing it, and I think I think they want you to think that, oh, maybe it'll go another direction because there's such a long pause. There's like an incredible fake out that lasts like, it feels like an hour. But you just know it's not, this is Star Wars. There's a certain grammar that it has to follow, and somebody's gonna die, and it's gonna be the older person because that's how heroes are born, or I don't know.
It also feels like we all know like Harrison Ford's not gonna do another like full franchise. Like
that too.
He just came to like finish, like to scrap off a little bit. It's like, okay, you're gonna kill me? Cool, I'm done.
Yeah.
He's been way too happy doing the promotional tour to have actually lived through the movie.
It's like, I'm done. One last lap. The one thing I think probably the part where I actually did, despite myself, clap is the first reveal of the Millennium Falcon. Like, because it's done in such a, it's done in the middle of an action sequence. Everything is moving at a really, really lightning fast clip, and it's just a total swish pan side gag to reveal the Millennium Falcon, and it works so well. It's like so. It's just a callback to the Millennium Falcon being a piece of shit, and like that nobody would want to fly it, and they're talking about the shift that's off screen, and then you zoom over, and there it is. There's the Millennium Falcon, and I don't know. It was just that whole scene, that whole action sequence that got applause in our theater just at the end of it, because it's so, there's a lot of character information in it as well, and as these callbacks that make you feel great, and it's also just like a really well shot scene, and in a more dynamic way than they were ever able to do in the originals, and that they opted not to do in the prequels. So and I mean, we could talk about, like, I feel like another half hour about cinematography and editing, because that's another thing I noticed in watching episode 3 last night, is the, like, how staid all that stuff is in those prequels, how it feels so stagey and unimaginative. You never get up close to characters. They're always kind of like these cutout dolls in the screen. And this film, you really, really get in characters' faces, and you move with them, and you move behind them and alongside them, and it makes it feel a lot more real and, like, immersive, I think. But yeah. We're about out of time, you guys. I need to, if there are no more further comments, maybe everybody can just sign off with the one thing that they the biggest question you have after watching the film. The biggest unsolved mystery that may or may not be solved in a future movie / comic book / video game / Snapchat feed / any other platform. Who wants to go?
When I walked out of the theater, the first thing we were talking about was, so are Rey and Kylo Ren brother and sister or not? But after thinking about the film, I realized pretty much every question I walked into the theater with didn't get answered. Like, they don't talk about Jakku really in the movie. They don't talk about how Luke's like lightsabers showed up. Like, there are all these things that people have been like theorizing and teasing and like deconstructing trailers about. And the movie actually answers next to none of it, which I thought was really interesting and kind of disappointing, but it leaves a lot of like fertile ground for comic books and hopefully future movies.
Hot take: The Force Awakens is just another trailer. Guitar.
You can't drop your mic. Your mic is fixed to your table.
Tasha, what was your biggest question upon leaving?
You know my biggest question. My biggest question was, Emily, can I write a piece about all these mysteries that are not being dealt with?
Oh, we're going to address all of it. Look for that sometime after the weekend, after everybody's had a chance to digest all this stuff, and we will immediately start to pick it apart to shreds, there were shreds.
A lot of questions, but most of those questions were intended by the movie, and I think most of them will be answered either in the ancillary materials or in the next film. The only one that I think bugged me, just in a why the hell are you doing this one, was C-3PO's red arm, which we know, like, it was never intended to be, like, answered in the film. It's the province of a comic book that hasn't even come out yet, and now isn't going to come out until February. Like, that's all going to be dealt with off screen. What my big question was, why did we make a big deal out of it in the film? Like, why is it there? It adds nothing to the movie. It's just a distraction, but it's a distraction that they make a point of calling your attention to.
Yeah.
And they make a point of saying, and we're not going to deal with this right now because it's not important. It's like,
don't worry about my red arm. Yeah, it was weird. And that's one of those things that, like, I remember watching when I was obsessed with the original trilogy. There are so many things that, like, catch your attention. You're like, oh, I'm gonna go look up, find out what this is about, or read more on, somebody's GeoCities homepage. And I don't know if I would feel that way about some of these things, some of these little loose ends, like how intriguing they actually are. I would say my biggest question, and also one of the things that we didn't even talk about that really doesn't work for me, is Snoke. I don't understand why does he look like that? Where did he come from? I don't know. I just don't. That was one of the weakest links of the movie to me.
Is this something you care about in the moment, or is it like it just doesn't matter?
It's just like, I don't know if he needed a master, honestly. Like, I could see Kylo Ren just being bad on his own. Like, it just feels like that's another indebted echo of the old films, like Darth Vader kneeling down before the hologram of the Emperor. Like, I don't know what role he plays in the story beyond being that guy that he can talk to.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Didn't work for me. And sort of a waste of Andy Serkis because he didn't move. He was just like a really static character. I guess the voice was cool, but it was an odd thing for me.
Yeah, and as a case of the effects, it didn't work either. I thought the one thing I think it did add was that all the people in that organization are super young, like General Hux and and Kylo Ren. They're all relatively young, so it made sense to be some sort of older person, maybe some sort of leftover or somebody with storied knowledge that could be kind of leading the whole thing from behind the scenes. But I did not love the character work.
Maybe it's like Google, where Larry and Sergey weren't that old, so they brought Eric Schmidt along. He's their Eric Schmidt.
I think Eric Schmidt.
Really nerdy reference. I'm sorry.
Schmidt a little bit. I didn't think of it.
He's like, no, I was gonna make a *Halt and Catch Fire* reference that two people would get. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up because we've already gone a little bit over. Thanks everybody for listening. And let me tell you something about Braintree real quick. Thanks for Braintree for sponsoring today's episode of the Vergecast. Braintree gives you not brains on a tree, but a full stack payment solution. Support for all your for all payment types your customers might want. Start accepting Android Pay, Apple Pay, PayPal, Bitcoin, Venmo, cards, and whatever's next. all with a single integration. Now you can take them all in over 130 currencies. As your company grows, Braintree will stay by your side from your first dollar to your billionth. And all it takes is a couple lines of code to get started. To learn more, visit braintreepayments.com/Vergecast. And real quick Twitter roll call. You can follow The Verge on Twitter @Verge. And Snapchat is The Real Verge.
Actually, no, Snapchat is now just Verge.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
All right. Verge, we got it. We got that.
Finally.
We got that rare name. I am Emily Yoshida on Twitter. Ross is Ono Roscoe on Twitter. Bryan is Bryan Bishop on Twitter. And
BC
Tasha, what?
BC Bishop.
BC Bishop. I knew I was going to miss one. This was like, I was just testing myself.
Who
I
is
was
Bryan Bishop on Twitter?
And Tasha is Tasha Robinson. Just Tasha Robinson, right? On
Just
Twitter.
Tasha Robinson.
Yeah. And Kaitlyn is
KAIT_Tiffany. My name was taken. I'm sorry. Heinous Twitter handle.
And we are all going to be talking about Star Wars probably all weekend. So, yeah. This is fun.
This is great.
Sorry to ruin it for everybody in the nearby vicinity who hasn't.
I'm literally leaving this now to go wait in line to go see my screening of Star Wars.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. Well, we better get out of here then. Thanks all. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.